Good afternoon. My name is Richard Welch. Many of you may know my last name, Welch, from our family business in Fort Dodge, the Welch Shoe Company, or the Welch Shoe Store. And to learn more about my story and my life, we need not really travel anywhere from Fort Dodge. 1910, I was born right here in Fort Dodge to my parents Ed and Helen. And a few years previous to my being born in 1910, my father and his brother Ed and Sam opened and started their own shoe business and shoe company right here in Fort Dodge called the Welch Shoe Company. That was in 1907. A few years later in 1910, I was born right here in Fort Dodge, and through the majority of my childhood and my schooling was right here, eventually attending Fort Dodge Junior College. And at the conclusion of my graduation from Fort Dodge Junior College, did what I think most American boys would do and joined my father's company, joined the family business right here in town. So at the age of 20 in 1930, I began working at Welch Shoe Store, learning the tricks of the trade and spending time with my family. In 1941, I was married to my beautiful bride Elsie, who ended up living longer than I did, but it was a wonderful marriage together. We have 3 children together: Richard Jr., Linda, and Barbara, with my wife Elsie. In 1942, I did what I think most young American boys would do and served in World War II. I served on a tank battalion. And my family loves to recognize this detail. It's been said that I did not like to talk much about myself. I was a very humble man, but the 752nd Tank Battalion, I actually served on the very first tank that ever rolled into Rome. So that's a detail that my family likes they take that seriously, and they think that's a fun fact. In 1945, at the conclusion of my service in the war, upon my return and my father's retirement, I actually assumed ownership and managership of the shoe store at that time. At the age of 35, when my father chose to retire and my uncle chose not to work for the company anymore, I was the owner and manager of the shoe store at the age of 35. That was in 1945. In 1953, my longtime business partner Dale Happ joined me at the store. Some of you may know him. We together owned and managed the company for another 22 years until my retirement in 1975 from the shoe store. A big part of our managership of the store was actually moving from its original location, which was in the Carver building, a few blocks south of there, to the 911 Central Avenue is where the shoe store moved to, and that was a big part of our managing it. In 1975, I retired from the shoe store, and my wife and I and my family, after the kids had been through their schooling, actually chose to retire to Florida. And in my later years, we were living in a retirement community near Naples, Florida. And in 1994, at the age of 84, on January 10th, I passed away in Naples, Florida, leaving behind my 3 children and my wife. Elsie has been back in the Fort Dodge community since my passing, and there was actually a story that I've been told that's standing right here. This gravestone over here of Stillman Messervy. There was the headstone was changed, and there was a dedication service for that specific headstone. And Elsie actually sat right here at the service, right next to my headstone and her eventual headstone. She ended up passing away at the age of 101, so lived quite a bit longer than I did, and was here to see my gravestone here, and hers actually at this Stillman Messervy dedication. Many of you might have heard or might know of my parents' household. It's called the Welch House, and really maintains a historic landmark name in the Fort Dodge area. It's located above the beautiful Crawford Park. My parents had the house built in 1921, and there's lots and lots of bay windows that overlook down the hill to the park. And My wife and I never lived in this house. This was my parents' home, and then upon their passing, was sold to Bill and Gretchen Enke, who live in the house. So it was never my house to live in. I did live in there. I grew up in that house when I was a child, but upon my graduation from junior college and my working at the store, Elsie and I lived in a different home from there. But that house maintains its name as a historical landmark in the Fort Dodge area. I thank you for listening to my story today.